Detective David Mills.
Dispatch.
What do you have?
You sure you don't want to go back to the sticks? Because it just got heavy. Carpenter case Smith. Gone 7 hours. No sign. Nothing. Gone.
Huge story breaking tonight.
Detective Johnson,
Detective Mills.
what do you know about our last bright hope?
Carpenter Smith. Citizen Kane type. Gonna make the city a gentler place.
8 people of interest here.
You're all named Smith. And we've learned you're the last people Carpenter Smith was with in the mysterious few hours before his homicide. So I'm gonna find out over time what you talked about.
Doesn't work like that, darling. I'm tired now, everyone.
Suspects all in heavy murder. This is the greatest story ever told. This is the story of the Ultra City Smiths.
All right, baby, it is an absolute delight to have a chat with you. I'm very excited by this. So it's really, yeah, it's quite a joy. Ultra City Smiths, I watched this and it really surprised me. It was so much more strange and wonderful and engaging than I really expected. I knew it'd be good, but man, it is really quite a show. But I was really interested in the role that you're playing in it. So you're a song and dance professional, and in the show, you're playing a different type of physical performer. You're playing a wrestler, and she's got a very different body shape to your own. And I was wondering what drew you to the role specifically, but also whether the physicality of being able to play roles so far from yourself is a draw card to doing this kind of animation voice work.
Uh, well, where should I begin with that? I uh, the in terms of the difference in physicality, I mean that is one of the wonderful things about doing voiceover animation, or however it's a stop action, or however they do it, is being able to voice anything. You know, I've played cats, and I've played dogs, and I've played and now I've played a giant lady wrestler. So that's you have a lot of you're open to a lot more casting options if it's not live. If
Yeah, I
it's
mean, you
not,
call her a giant lady wrestler, like Lady Andrea the Giant. She is quite a big lady.
she is, but I love. You asked what drew me to the project, and I read the script and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And the idea of stop action baby dolls was just so fun. That was just fabulous. That's just hilarious. And what I loved when um, I started working was being directed to be as gentle and she's so her personality and her energy is so quiet and soft and gentle, and I love that juxtaposition to this. You think, oh, it's a big giant lady wrestler, oh, maybe she talk. No, she's like, she has this very soft and loving and sweet, and I just thought it's brilliant. It's just a brilliant direction to be taken.
Now, I always wonder when you get a project
All
like
of
this.
all of the characters are phenomenal.
I always wonder when you sign up for a project like this, where it's such a unique project. It is unlike anything I've really seen on TV in some time. When
Ever,
you're
ever, come
ever
on,
really,
ever.
but when you're signing up for something like this, do they show you sort of animatics? Like you're able to see sort of visually what it might look like, or are you going purely off the script alone?
Uh, I think it was. I think it was at first. It was just the script,
Mm.
It was just the script and saying we're using baby dolls and animation. That was the stop action baby dolls, and that was enough for me. And then, you know, to say yes. And then later I saw, um, not like a cartoon where they have a drawing of it, but there was a little bit of a roughed out of something that I did see, and you know, just only confirmed my enthusiasm and exponentially increased it.
Now, you're not really a stranger to doing animated voice work, but I was wondering how that changes your work as a live physical performer, if at all. So do you actually consider voice then while you're doing live action a little bit more than you may have otherwise?
No, no, it's they are different animals. They are, you know, acting is acting,
Mm.
regardless of what you're doing. I could be, you know, in a ballet without speaking. I could be in a Shakespeare play. I could be in a musical. Acting is acting is acting. But um, the the medium is a switch. So there are different technical things come into play. You know, different technical things when you're in front of a camera than when you're on a stage, and different technical things when it's just your voice that's working. I know when I first started doing animation, I was a little surprised at how accentuated I was getting directed to be in different ways. And I thought, oh, well, because it's just the voice. This piece, Ultra City Smiths, is not like that. This is much more like really voicing a real. You might as well being on stage or in a film or something. It's not like um, generally the way cartoon acting is. Although that said, you know, come to think of it, cartoon acting has shifted quite a lot since, I don't know, 25 years ago when I did it the first time. It was a lot more exaggerated then. You get a lot more naturalistic kind of speaking now in animated
Yeah.
pieces.
The number of
So
subtle performances in the show is really quite incredible.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask a really rote question, so I apologize for
Really,
that in
what
advance.
question? A really what question?
A really rote question, just a little bit obvious and
I didn't know what word you just used. Was
rote, R-O-T-E, like a very obvious,
oh, oh,
a dull question. So I apologize for
yeah,
the question I'm
no,
going to ask.
I know the word wrote. I got caught up. I'm sorry.
Now, I
Heck,
apologize for asking this, but I'm actually really, really curious about this. So I'm in the middle of a Cheers rewatch at the moment. So I've just reached the point where you've kind of entered the show. So you've been around for about a season-ish and guess sort of star performance sort of levels. And what really struck me is that you came into it as the perfect character in Cheers at the exact right time for the show, in that you're contrasted against all the other characters perfectly, including Frasier, who's a bit of a contrast against everyone else already by himself. And I'm wondering for you, when you came into the show, the character is so fully formed in terms of what she would be as the character continues on. Like, she evolves a little bit, but she is absolutely there from that first moment. I was wondering how much that's on the page and how much it's you finding the character. And I'm especially curious about this because I know it was a very early TV role for you. So you're probably a little bit nervous coming into it, but you knocked it out of the park straight away. So I'm just kind of curious how you came to it.
well, thank you. It was like my second job on television, and it was just one scene in one episode, is
Mm.
what it was supposed to be. It was just that one bad date that went wrong. He had a long episode with Jennifer Tilly, and and they decided that they really liked what happened to Frasier's character when he was with my character, this new character of Lilith. He really liked what Lilith did to producers liked what Lilith did to Frasier, and they thought this is something that's really interesting and worth investigating. You know, because it challenged the Frasier part, and it was an unusual role. Certainly, Lilith was a very unusual kind of a part for television. So it's really a testament to the writers and the producers of developing that relationship and who Lilith was. I can say this about the character and what happened to her. I had When I auditioned for it, I had never auditioned for a part that was described the way this one was described. I was, I'd come from, and I was in the middle of doing a Broadway show, and it's usually I was playing these tough broads, tough, sexy, heart of, tough as nails, heart of gold, dances great, belts a sea, kind of part, lead's best friend. And then I got this description of the part as being really buttoned up and very repressed, and you could count the comb marks in her hair and all that. And I thought, I've never auditioned. What am I going to? And I started to try to figure out, and I came up with a voice and a sort of an idea that made me laugh. So I did that as my audition. From the audition, I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. From the
Yeah.
audition, I was dressed for the audition, and I had a shirt that was with a button-up collar, and I had slicked my hair back in my ballet bun that I've been wearing my whole life to ballet class. And I went to the audition. They said, you got the part. They took me to the first read through. So I was there in the read through, meeting everyone in the cast. And then they said, okay, go home for lunch and come back in an hour. I went home. I took my hair down. This was 1985, I think.
Yeah.
So I would put on my purple satin shirt and my black leather mini skirt. And I came back to work dressed as myself. And they went, what? And in fact, Ted Danson introduced himself. He said, my name's Ted. I said, yes, we met this morning, because I am so different from the character, and I presented and looked so different from the character. And I think that when the producers and the writers saw that, they went, and there's another thing we can do with Lilith, and that is to have her have this side that is wild, and which is maybe more like me.
You've got Kelsey Grammer looking at bringing back Frasier for a third series. Could there be a place for Lilith on the new show at all?
That's a question for Kelsey. I don't know. They've been talking about that. I've been hearing this rumor it's been over 2 years. I've been hearing this rumor now. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm getting on the phone to him. We're going to make this happen. So, look, Cheers is maybe the greatest sitcom of all time. No pressure on that one at all. But why? Sorry, I'm getting flustered now just thinking about. Okay, scratch that. Let's get back into it. Okay, so Cheers is maybe the greatest sitcom of all time, which is why too many years later you're talking to some guy in Australia about it still. Is it a burden for you still being asked about the role so regularly?
It's not a burden for me. I will say it's never been a burden for me. Never been a burden. That said, when it first was happening and shortly after I was doing it, I did make a lot of tricky decisions in what to do and what jobs to take, because as you might imagine, I did get offered a lot of very intelligent, uptight characters that didn't have a sense of humor. And, some of them were okay, but a lot of them were sort of a pale comparison to, Lilith, the Cheers writers were just spectacular. And so if somebody tried to do that, it just kind of, it wasn't as good. And I also I worked very, very hard to not get typecast. I'm going to get cast, a certain way. Everybody gets cast a certain way, but I didn't want to get pigeonholed into that all the time. So when you say, was it a burden? No, it wasn't a burden, but I did have to work extra hard at this one thing.
Yeah.
And I guess I should have taken it as a compliment. It's like, everybody loves Lilith, so we want a Lilith too on our show. And I go, you got to get somebody else, because I did it already.
Yeah, that seems to be a problem faced by a lot of the Cheers cast members. So Ted Danson was fighting against that for his entire career post Cheers.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's television is huge, and Cheers was the #1 show for a couple of years, and it was on for 11 years or whatever. And it's so present in people's minds that you really have to. It's a double-edged thing, sharp object, because it's great. On the other hand, there's some things I just can't do.
Yeah. there's something so indelible about that show. It's such a part of, I know, sort of my psyche as a TV viewer, where I was fine talking to you until I started talking about Cheers, and then suddenly I found myself getting very nervous talking to you about it. It's such a primal thing. It's yeah.
You were probably a little kid also when it was on. You were young enough, so that was part of your childhood and part of, you know,
Look,
your
absolutely. I mean, this is one of these things where I was probably 12 years old when I first found Cheers in the final sort of 2 or 3 years of that show's run, but it's one of my main shows. It's like a fundamental building block of me as a consumer. But look,
yeah.
I'm gonna leave you be. I've got one more question for you though. So I'm getting to wind up here. You've guested it on so many shows over the years, and I was wondering how that early success playing Lilith has changed the way that you approach these guest roles. And are you ever going into them thinking that the role could be a little bit more than just being a one shot? So, for example, there's no reason that Judge Friend from The Good Fight couldn't lead a spin off, for example. And does that sort of frame the way that you think about these roles going forward?
You know, it was such a bizarre thing when to me it was such a bizarre and surprise that they wanted to keep they kept asking me to come back and ask me to come back, and then they offered me a contract to actually be on the show. I was so surprised by that I never would expect that to happen again. I
Mm.
mean, I guess it might, and I guess it does happen, but to me it was so unusual. And as I say, I was in the middle of doing a Broadway show. I was doing Sweet Charity, and we had done it in California, and we were taking some time off before we brought it back to Broadway because Debbie Allen, our star, was finishing up her television show Fame at the time. So I was really in a certain mindset, and I never thought about doing television at all. So now when I do it, it's just like I love playing Claudia Friend, Judge Claudia Friend, whose politics are fantastic, but her hands are tied by the law. So I love doing that. Is it enough for a spin-off? I don't think it's enough. I don't think you would spin it off. You would bring her back because she's interesting, and that's great. I love going back and doing it, but no, the short answer is better than me rambling probably. So no, I don't think about, oh, this could turn into something regular.
Look, I'm happy to hear you ramble for hours, but I'm getting to wind up, so I'm going to get out of here. So I'm going to note that Ultra City Smiths, it's streaming now on AMC Plus. It has
Oh,
been such a
please
delight
watch
talking to you.
Ultra City Smiths. Fantastic. That's my favorite show.
I'm
That's
putting
my
together my
favorite
top 10 list of the year, and quietly, this is making the list. So
show.
I'm so high on this show. It's very good. But Bebe Neuwirth, it has been such a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.